Dark of the Moon is a ghost tour at the St. Augustine Lighthouse. We give you 2 hours to experience the lighthouse at night. You are guided by our staff members who tell you some of the history and some of the folklore that surrounds the St. Augustine Lighthouse. We'll talk about some of our lighthouse keepers, some of the tragedies that have occurred here, and then we give you the opportunity to climb to the top of the lighthouse in the dark. After that, you'll have time to explore the property on your own and do some investigating of your own. In 1871, the construction began on the St. Augustine Lighthouse, and the head of construction was a gentleman named Hezekiah Pitty. Now, at the time, Hezekiah lived in Cape Elizabeth, Maine, and he had a wife and 5 children. Now, some of his children were fairly young, mostly between the ages of 4 and 15, so rather than leave them behind, he took his wife and his 4 youngest children to St. Augustine and essentially transplanted them onto Anastasia Island. At the time, the island was pretty much undeveloped. There was no Bridge of Lions connecting us to the mainland, and the only permanent structure was the old St. Augustine Lighthouse. And so there wasn't really much to do out here on the island, especially if you're a young child. So the Pitty kids started to get creative, and they especially liked to sneak onto the active construction site. So they would use it as their own personal little playground. And there was a rail cart system that ran from the port across the street all the way to the lighthouse construction zone. And so it was predominantly used to bring bricks from the port up the hill to the lighthouse, but the kids saw it as this really cool Victorian era roller coaster. So they would get into the cart at the lighthouse under the tracks. One of them would release the brake and they'd go careening down the hill, rushing towards the beach. Before they got too close, they would pull the brake again and it would screech to a halt before reaching the actual ocean. And so this went on for a while, whether their father knew it or not. And then one day, the 3 Pitty daughters, Mary, Carrie, and Eliza, were accompanied by a 4th girl, a companion, a nanny. We're not completely sure. But all 4 girls got into the cart just like every other day before. And they released the brake, and they went careening down the hill, rushing towards the beach. And when they got too close, they pulled the brake again. But this time, nothing happened, because the brakes had entirely malfunctioned and the cart kept going. It derailed off the end of the tracks and flipped upside down as it crashed into the water, with the 4 girls pinned underneath. And as it dragged them down to the ocean floor, a young man down the beach named Dan Sessions saw them crash, and he ran as fast as he could, dove in after them, and using all of his strength, he somehow managed to lift that heavy iron cart up off of the girls. He grabbed hold of Carrie, who was 4, she was the youngest, and pulled her to safety. She would be brought back to shore safe and sound. But by the time he had gotten to the crash, the other 3 girls had already drowned. Mary was 15, Eliza was 13, and the 3rd girl remains unnamed to this day. The day following the tragedy, the entire city of St. Augustine shut down. And after the funeral, the Pitti family packed their bags, left the construction site behind, and went back to Cape Elizabeth, Maine to lay their daughters to rest, where they remain in a cemetery in Cape Elizabeth. Activity on the grounds that we like to describe as childlike, mischievous, playful. We often get activity when we have children on the tour, usually between 4 and 15, somewhere in that range. And they especially like to play with the glow sticks that we give to our visitors on the ghost tours. They will often come off of people's necks. They'll go down to pick it up. That'll still be solidly tied. They'll fly them across the room. I have personally seen glow sticks tug away from people's necks and just go flying away from them with absolutely no interaction. We get a lot of different sort of footprints around the grounds, oftentimes in the lighthouse. Sometimes in the early morning we'll open up and everything will have been locked and alarmed. Nobody will have been in or out of the buildings in the last 12 hours or so. But we'll see little wet footprints on the landings in the lighthouse. Sometimes we get little dirty bare footprints in the keeper's house. Oftentimes they'll stay on the floor for a while, no matter how much we try to clean them, they will not fade away.